break. Holy cow. And race replacement via government subsidy. So the government wants to replace you. There's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. We got to start with the race replacement in Canada, and then we'll go and look at what's going on in England after dealing with all of. They're a little bit ahead of us. So they've been dealing with a lot of these policies being sneakily applied in England. And now we're watching the chickens come home to roost, and it's civil war. That's simply what it is. So first, here's what's happening in Canada. And Table Salt says, your government hates you. And I think that she's exactly right. And list of grants for hiring newcomers only. So I-Advance Pathways is the first one. And I just want to show you, here's the Canada, the Government of Canada website. I don't know why the Government of Canada website has to be unintelligible. Like the URL is unintelligible. Like it's ictc-ctic.smaply.ca. But that's the Government of Canada website anyway, regardless. This is Pathways to Employment for Newcomers. Registration is currently closed for this pathway program. So there are other ones, but these are the examples of the programs, and they roll them out. And once these programs become full, because there's a finite amount of space, then they close, but then they'll open again next year, or they'll open again in the next time when they want to use a program like this, right? So they bring in a whole bunch of people, and this program will pay up to $15,000. So I-Advance Pathways is the I-Advance program provides a wage subsidy to employers hiring skilled newcomers with technology-related backgrounds. Employers can be from any industry. However, funded positions must be related to digital information and communication technology, ICT. It offers a wage subsidy of 70% to a maximum of $15,000 for employers located in Alberta, British Columbia, Ontario, and Nova Scotia. And so $15,000. So you wouldn't be hiring necessarily a full-time person, but $15,000, if that's 70%, according to this calculator, that's a salary of $21,428. Okay, so that's a pretty okay part-time salary, right? You string together two of those, right? You work for two little companies, and you do that, and the government pays $15,000 of that, and the company pays $6,000, right? So and change. So that's people are going to do that. Like a lot of people are going to do that. That's what happens, right? There's a bunch of other programs. These ones, the Environmental Foreign Talent Development Program is the same, $15,000. Welcoming Newcomers Wage Subsidy is $10,000 for 50%. So that's a $20,000 package. And again, Skilled Newcomer Internship for the Bioeconomy Program. This one's 75% at $20,000. So the salary is $20,000. What's the total salary if it's 75? Because I like to know how much the employer has to spend. You know what's weird? This is a weird number. See if you can see what I thought stood out about this number. Okay, so the price is $26,666.67. You think they did that on purpose? Do you think anybody looked at that and said, maybe we should change that a little bit? Nobody cared. Nobody was like, well, let's just offset that a little bit, right? We're a Christian nation-ish, but nobody cares about these sixes everywhere. Weird, right? Like, don't you think that's weird? Like, J.D. Vance is weird. Sorry, Kamala Harris says, isn't that weird later in the show? And I thought it was funny, so I wanted to do a callback. So it's not weird, it's satanic, and they did it on purpose, and it's bleeding into everything. And I don't mean to be so on the nose, but sometimes you just have to say, like, I know what's happening here, and what's happening here is you guys are using your power and positions of power to insert satanic things wherever you can. The Super Bowl, employment programs, whatever it is, the speed of the Earth traveling through the solar system, whatever it is, right? It's pretty wild. Okay, let's talk about England, the United Kingdom, and Hitchens in 2009, or Christopher Hitchens in 2009 talks about the dangers of Islamophobia, and his dangers took less than 15 years to be realized. And we're seeing it here already in Canada too, but he articulates what I've been saying for a while. He was saying it well before me, obviously, but I've been saying it on this show. He's been saying it before this show existed, and it is something that there really isn't a pushback against. I don't hear Pierre Poilievre saying this Islamophobia thing is horse poop and we should not embrace it. he's using the same language. He's saying anti-Semitic and you know, we want to be all inclusive and all the rest of this nonsense. So it is everywhere. It's penetrated everything, just like Klaus Schwab and his cabinets, right? Here we go.
Give it up or give it.
Oh, it's too fast. I'm sorry. Fix it up here. I have to listen to everything, right, to make sure that it's interesting enough to show you. Here we go.
Give it up or give it to your deadliest enemy and pay for the rope that will choke you. This is very urgent business, ladies and gentlemen. I beseech you. Resist it while you still can, and before the right to complain is taken away from you, which will be the next thing. You will be told you can't complain because you're Islamophobic. The term is already being introduced into the culture as if it was an accusation of race hatred, for example, or bigotry, whereas it's only the objection to the preachings of a very extreme and absolutist religion. Watch out for these symptoms. They are not just symptoms of surrender, very often ecumenically offered to you by men of God in other robes, Christian and Jewish and smarmy ecumenical. These are the ones who will hold open the gates for the barbarians. The barbarians never take a city till someone holds the gates open for them. And it's your own preachers who will do it for you, and your own multicultural authorities who will do it for you. Resist it while you can. And if you wonder what will happen if you don't, look and see how a cricket team in Middlesex in England had to change its name by force last week, because it was called, and had been for years, the Middlesex Crusaders. Look and see how stories about little pigs can't be taught to children in English schools anymore, lest offense be taken by the religion of peace. Resist it while you can.
One of the things that is coming up over and over again is Islamophobia. And, well, you can see the stats, you can see...
Just for clarity purposes for people who are just listening, the top is 2009 Hitchens. The bottom, who's speaking now, is the current Prime Minister of England, Starmer. Here we go.
The numbers rising, particularly since October the 7th, although we shouldn't fall into the trap of thinking that before October the 7th, this was all heading in the right direction. It's been far too high for far too long. Clearly, we need to just say over and over again, Islamophobia is intolerable. It can never, ever be justified. And we have to continue with a zero tolerance approach. And I think there's more we can do in government. There's certainly stuff online, which I think needs tackling much more robustly than it is at the moment.
What I'm hoping, Keir, is your experience as a prosecutor means you'll be thinking about the strategy we can use to make sure we take action against those who break the law.
Break the law. There's already laws against being violent and threatening people and so on and so forth. And they're trying to say that using Islamophobic language online is the thing that we have to focus on in England. And, well, I'll show you very clearly that that's not. So yesterday, a few days ago, there were 3 children murdered by a migrant who stabbed them. He came into daycare and he stabbed kids. And what a horrific thing to do. What a horrific crime, et cetera, et cetera. And I talked about it briefly when it happened and so on and so forth. And then since then, there have been people, British people, who've protested the mass migration because it's changing their high trust society into a low trust society. And people don't like that. And so they're going out to protest. And because they're protesting, they're being put on lists. Police are arresting them at their homes. And the migrants, and specifically Islamic Muslims, and I don't know if they're migrants or if they're just people who are Muslim Brits, because there are a lot of Muslim Brits, people who have been born to people who came here 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and so on and so forth, the beginning of this whole thing, right? And so I don't know if it's just newcomers or what the makeup of these mobs are, but what's going on is they're going out looking for protesters to attack. You see? So the protesters are protesting something that their government has done, and now the Islamic Muslim people are taking offense to that, and they're going out to intimidate these protesters. And I'll show you the video of it. It's terrible. Like, there's fires, there's cars being vandalized, smashed up, all sorts of crazy things. There's all it looks like a war zone across multiple cities, like Liverpool, Leeds, Hull, all sorts of cities across the United Kingdom look like look like a war zone. This police officer, one of the head police officers, UK's most senior police commissioners, calls for calm and honesty. His statement was removed, right? So, like, you have to see, because I didn't even bring it up, but like it was removed. So that's pretty crazy. Oh, except the cookies. Sorry, the page you're looking for could not be found, but the statement was saved, right? So people know what was said, but they're trying to hide it, right? And so that's pretty crazy stuff. They don't want calm. They want social unrest. They want social unrest so they can justify cracking down with lockdowns. Peter Sweden's reporting that they want lockdowns to quell the violence. Lockdowns. That's the idea. We're a free society. Lockdowns are incongruent with a free society. So there's lots to get to within just the England stuff. So first, Hitchens called it. Starmer's buying into it. Starmer is a globalist, it seems, who's using all the same rhetoric, the October 7th stuff that Pierre Poilievre uses, we need to quell online harms, all of this stuff is really dangerous, blah, 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 blah. All the same crap we're hearing from our leadership as well. And here's the head police officer's statement. So UK's most senior police officer calls for common honesty. Donna Jones, chair of the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners and Police Crime Commissioner for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, has called for calm following the upsurge in violent protests and up and down the country. In a statement addressing the issue on Saturday, the 3rd of August, she said, quote, "The rioting and civil unrest across the country following the murder of 3 children in Southport on Tuesday has escalated to a worrying level. Police officers have been injured, buildings have been targeted because of those living in them and worshipping at them, and police cars and vans set on fire. Millions of pounds of damage have been done, and more than 100 people have been arrested, with many more expected. Police stations are burning. Police officers' annual leave has been cancelled. And riot police are dusting off their shields from Land's End to John O'Groats. The behavior of some of those protesting has been extremely violent, highly distressing, and absolutely criminal. This weekend, a number of protests are planned across the country and across political and ideological spectrums. The announcement of the Prime Minister's new violent crime unit have led to an accusation of two-tier policing, which has inflamed protesters who state they are battling to protect Britain's sovereignty, identity, and stop illegal immigration. Burning towns and cities and attacking the police is not the answer. So how do we stop it? I've spoken to people from both sides of the spectrum, and the only way to stem the tide of violent disorder is to acknowledge what's causing it. While the devastating attack in Southport on Tuesday was a catalyst, the commonality among the protest groups appears to be focused on 3 key areas: a desire to protect Britain's sovereignty, the need to uphold British values, and, in order to do this, stop illegal immigration. The growth of feeling across the country has mirrored, to a lesser extent, the rebellion to illegal immigration that has played out across France over the last 12 months. The government must acknowledge what is causing this civil unrest in order to prevent it. Arresting people or creating violent disorder units is treating the symptoms and not the cause. The questions these people want answering: what is the government's solution to mass uncontrolled immigration? How are the new Labour government going to uphold and build on British values? This is the biggest challenge facing Keir Starmer, his government, and it's bitten quickly. Yeah, he was just elected very recently and people were really, really happy, and now the honeymoon is already over. Back to this. Quote, as a national police leader in a police and crime commissioner, someone who has spent almost 2 decades representing the public, this is the clear message I will put to the Prime Minister and Home Secretary this week. We all need to work together to stop this mindless criminal behavior committed by a small number of people, while understanding the views of those attending rallies who feel strongly but don't cause disorder. So that, I think, pretty reasonable message was removed from the police website, and they're silencing her as well. And that's pretty crazy. Lord Adders says, when the UK's most senior police commissioner posts something balanced and sensible, which condemns the violence but highlights the issues millions of people in the UK are concerned about, and then the link is taken down, we have a serious problem. The truth is not allowed. It seems accurate. Joey says the UK is now a total police state. They're knocking down people's doors for any slight criticism of mass migration. The migrants are allowed to rape all the women they want and commit endless crimes. Nothing much happens to them in response. This is why America must never give up their guns, and why voting for Trump is a must. A vote for Kamala is a vote for disarmament, and a vote for the inevitable police state that follows. I think that's true. What do we mean, knocking down doors? This is a woman. ViceGuard is reporting the British police are going door to door in Sunderland, arresting people they suspect of crimes in connection with the anti-mass immigration protest. Somebody said it's illegal for them to do this without a warrant, and somebody else said there's been a state of emergency declared, and so the police are above that. They don't need a warrant. They can just go in and do this to stop criminality. Here we go.
Please open the door!
And then they're bringing her out. So that's pretty intimidating for people who were protesting, and they thought that they were allowed to protest, probably. Certainly, I don't think they thought they'd have their door kicked in. Radio Genoa says Muslim immigrants in Stoke hunt British patriots with knives, hammers, and axes. They do this because Allah wants it. Islam is a problem. Here is, right? Will that be illegal because of Islamophobia? Islamophobia is not real. Here we go. So that's England, Stoke, England, and the police are running away. I mean, it would be pretty easy to decide who to deport here, right? Like, I think pretty quick, no problems. Here's Liverpool. I don't think I can make this bigger, so apologies. Like, I've been to Liverpool. We are tourists in Liverpool quite often when I go visit my family there. And like, it's because it's a very similar city to, you know, anyone that you've been to, and watching it degenerate into this kind of scene is disturbing, right? This is, I don't know where this one is. Lord Miles says civil war has broken out in England. 3 children were brutally murdered by a migrant, and the police did nothing, so half the country has erupted into mass riots. The migrants are also throwing acid and hitting people with hammers in counter-protest. The police are overwhelmed. So I don't know where this one is. But there's cars burning debris in the middle of the street, and no end in sight. Amy says Muslims have declared war in the UK. Masked jihadis chanting the Islamic war cry, Allah Akbar, climbed the wall of a Hindu temple in Birmingham. First they terrorized Hindus in Leicester, and now they're hunting Hindus throughout the country. So interesting. Well, I mean, let's just import all of these people from the Middle East. What could go wrong? Here we are. European invasion says breaking. Muslims in Stoke prepare for chaos. They're armed with clubs and cutting tools. It doesn't sound like he's saying, everybody calm down, we should probably chill out and go home and relax. He sounds like he's saying, you know, pretty aggressive things. This one says, protesters and riots are occurring across England today amid Monday's South Park knife attack. Footage shows the chaotic scenes where tires and cars burning in Hull, England. 3 police officers were injured and 4 people arrested. So I've shown you that already. The video is a different one, but it's the same car on fire, tires and things. Jack Straw says the clash of 2 societies, 2 cultures not meant to coexist in the same turf. Groups of migrants are now taking to the streets, confronting anti-mass immigration protesters in the UK. So part of the government's job is to keep the border secure so you don't have roving gangs of armed men attacking the citizens. Fail. Warmonger says far-right thugs shouting kill them after seeing foreigners in a car in Hull, England. War monitors using far-right? Do I follow this guy? Whew, not anymore. Far-right. I think like using that unironically? I don't think so. I don't think so, War Monitor. Anyway, regardless, more cars on fire. This is different cars on fire and tires on fire than the one I showed you. Go back. And so here's a woman who lays it out for us in 20 seconds.
These masked Muslim men across the northwest chanting hates on the street right now. Do you think the police are going to beat the shit out of them like they do to white protesters? Absolutely not. The police will retreat. The police will allow them to do what they're doing because it's one rule for the brown man and one rule for the white man.
I don't think she's wrong. It seems that's accurate and true. Here's Radio Genoa. British police did not arrest Muslim immigrants with knives, hammers, and axes. However, they did arrest an unarmed white patriot woman. The British police are a joke. They are the people who have been instructed to be the enforcement arm for the NWO invasion globalist New World Order. That's what this is. I know NWO and New World Order are the same thing, but that's what this is. They're arresting. Well, we'll get there in just a minute. I've got a tweet that explains it, but this is exactly what happened in Mao's China to destabilize the society and to destroy the culture so they could reshape the culture into the communist culture they wanted. That's what's going on. That's the point. Okay, here's a video of this. Three officers to arrest this non-violent, unarmed white lady, right? That's a lot. Callan says, this is incredible. Catholics and Protestants are quite literally marching shoulder to shoulder in Belfast, Northern Ireland, as they demand an end to mass immigration. When these two communities are putting their differences aside and coming together, you know you've messed up. I fear that it's not enough. I fear that it's like, I fear that going to a communist globalist who's sitting in a seat of power and saying, hi, Mr. Communist Globalist, you don't seem to understand you're destroying our culture and we'd really like you to stop. And the communist globalist will say, sure, buddy. Well, yeah, we'll stop. See you later. We'll get back to you when we stopped. Okay. We'll tell you. We'll be in touch soon. And then like the police show up because you're under arrest, right? Like they're not operating by the same rules. They don't care. So the only solution is you walk in there and you arrest him. Right? You throw him in prison and you replace his crooked government with a government of the people by the people, and not democratic, a republic, right? A democratic republic, sure. But the whole job of the republic is to maintain your rights in the face of the majority, right? Because a majority, if there's 10 people and 9 of them vote that you should be their slave, what are you going to do? Right? Like, leave, right? So like that's the problem with democracy. It's just tyranny of the majority, right? So you need something to protect your rights, and we used to have something that protected our rights, but no longer. And even the republic that is supposed to be functional in the United States has been watered down to the point where people don't understand it, and so because they don't understand it, they don't know what rights they have, and because they don't know what rights they have and don't know what they can demand, especially because the newspaper will lie to you and the police will lie to you, et cetera, because they don't understand what they're owed, what their birthright is, what their rights are, then it can be watered down to the point of people losing it because they don't understand it, right? And like we're almost there anyway. So I'm not advocating for war. I'm not advocating for violence. I'm not saying get a gang of people together and arrest your local magistrate. That's not it. But I'm saying they're not going to listen to reason, and there isn't a way to vote our way out of this, unfortunately. And so we need to think outside of the box for a solution, because they're not going to listen to rational thought here. Bushra says, Muslim families' WhatsApp groups are in full overdrive. Everyone I know are constantly checking on their children, friends, and family. Each message is stay safe or don't go alone. Parents are worried. Our children are confused, and for that, there's no forgiveness. All this fear conjured up incrementally and intentionally by Suella Braverman, Nigel Farage, Tice Richard, Lee Armstrong, and the results are in front of us. These people are shameless and a threat to society and British values. I blame them, every single one. So they're going after the people who are trying to restore British values and saying these multiculturalism, globalist values are British values, and these people are dangerous. And so this is setting the mob on these people. You understand? That's the point of this. That's what they're trying to accomplish. Herb says this is what I was talking about. This guy Herb lays out how this is exactly the same thing as what was done in Mao's China, okay? To bring in communism. Because in order to bring in communism, you have to destroy the society that's the current culture in order to reshape it into a communist culture, okay? Herb says, many don't realize this. The catch and release policies with woke criminals is identical to what happened in China when they were becoming communist, Mao's China. Politicians and media were dog whistling and calling for blood, and when it finally happened, it was without consequence, which emboldened them to go farther and farther. So this is a tweet calling for blood, right? All this fear conjured up by these people, I blame them. They're not British. They're shameless, and they're a threat to our society, calling for blood. That's the same thing. So people call for blood and call for blood and call for blood. And then they say, oh, we condemn political violence. We can't believe Trump got shot. If he got shot, we thought it was just loud noises, right? Like they're liars and they're cheats, and they will say anything to implement their ideology. That's the point. That's what's going on here. Anyway, back to this. The killing and violence escalated quickly, and once those guilty realized they're immune to punishment as long as it was against the communicated class enemies. If you kill these political enemies, no problems. If you do something against Keir Starmer or somebody else who's helping you, then you're a criminal, right? You see what's going on? This is where we are. Our politicians and media are slandering their enemies, calling for blood, and then providing amnesty to those guilty. Where do you think this leads? To less crime and better days? No. It leads to criminals who become further emboldened and become even more targeted as they realize that their law is being applied differently to two separate groups. When you think of this and the fact that they are trying to get our kids and our youth through the education system, we are living through a template of how to have a communist revolution. That's it. Yeah, yes. That's exactly it. They're smearing their enemies as far right, and they're saying far right is the dangerous group, when clearly that's not true. This is Talk TV, and it's a British talk show, and these guys are finally realizing that, hey, they're talking about you. Here we go.
I want to know what the hell the far right is, because, come on.
Apparently you, Ben, me and him.
Yeah, me, exactly. My dad's Pakistani, my mum's English. She's blonde, blue-eyed. My dad is darker than me, and he's, even at his age, 91, he's got darker hair than I have. And what is the far right? I want to know what the hell the far right is, because, come on.
So the far right is being used to smear people, right? And yeah, not surprising. It's not surprising. John O'Looney says, I can tell you, so David Icke is saying, a message to both sides in the UK and everywhere. This is what's happening and how to stop it. So cut the puppet strings is what he's saying. And yeah, I think so. Like the chaos we're seeing is orchestrated by the puppet masters. And if you cut the strings, there's going to be more chaos, but at least it'll be our chaos. And hopefully it'll be over soon because we'll sort things out. Fingers crossed. But O'Looney says exactly this. I can tell you, having sat in very high profile meetings, they are desperate for civil unrest now to push the agenda to enslave us all. Muslim, Christian, Hindu, Sikh, and everyone else. If you want a digital ID forced on you and to live into 15-minute prisons, then keep listening to radical idiots and keep fighting. Come together and recognize your common enemy. It's the politicians and them alone. If you want better for your kids than these people have planned, we have to come together and make better for them. We don't need politicians. We do need children. So, truth. If our society in Canada is wholesale replaced with a village from Africa, right? Like, say your city, and the population in your city is now all from a village in Africa because Canadians stopped having babies and we just imported them. Is that still St. Catharines? Right? Is that still Welland? Is that still Port Dover? Right? If it's all African people who live there, right? This is a weird city in Canada, right? But welcome to Toronto. So is it still Canadian? Doesn't feel like it. It feels very different. CTV News says police officers injured as far-right activists, this is CTV News, face off against anti-racism groups across the United Kingdom. So I would say it's a little bit more serious than that, but they're blaming the far right. How dare you be upset about your children being murdered by migrants and unbelievable invasion immigration. The Yorkshire Lass says civil war is about to break out in the United Kingdom. The world is on the brink of World War III. People keep saying this. And Putin has shown unbelievable restraint for somebody who's got nuclear weapons and hypersonic missiles and a guy who's wrestled sharks and tigers and lions at the same time. Like, he's shown a lot of restraint, I think. It's quite interesting that we haven't had a full-blown World War III yet. It's all just kind of simmering, and nobody really wants World War III. Everybody keeps saying, yes, we don't want World War III, except we really have to kill that Putin guy. So, but like, everybody's predicting this World War III thing, and not to say I don't see it, but it seems like saber rattling now. Or it's like somebody who's continually threatening to break up with you or continually threatening to do something, but they never do it. And it's like, oh, okay, like another one of those things. Yeah, sure. And I don't doubt that there's serious risk or whatever, but I think the serious risk is coming from our governments. I think the serious risk is coming from the Canadian government. The Canadian government's likely to do something stupid and provoke a war here against us. And we'd be responsible for it. Our government would be responsible for it. That's much more plausible for me than some World War III that looks anything like World War II, where the world is united against an evil dictator, right? Like the evil dictator. We are the bad guys. The G7 is the evil dictator. And we, collectively, our own populations in the G7, need to take down the communist leaders who have taken it over. And like, that's the God's honest truth. And I wish it weren't so, but we're the bad guys in this situation. And we need to own it. We need to act like it's our responsibility to stop it. Global stock markets tanking and taking a massive hit. Well, they've been manipulated to the point of uselessness. Like, they took it off the gold standard. The American economy has been running as a zombie economy for years with people. I mean, like the amount of debt in America is in the trillions of dollars, more than that. So like it is a situation where global stock market's tanking. Shocking. Like you guys created a situation where you could manipulate the stock markets. You guys created fractal reserve banking. Like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Inflation's going crazy because of the policies that these people are trying to make work that fundamentally have flaws and they don't work. President Trump was nearly assassinated. People don't talk about that though. BRICS is ditching the US dollar and new countries are signing up to the alliance. So like while this is happening, so if say there's a country that signs up to BRICS and they de-dollar and that's like $100 million or something like that. Now the US Treasury has to buy that $100 million of debt, right? So like it's a big problem and it's getting worse. And everybody's acting like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Nothing could happen. Nothing bad could happen. Okay, I guess. Nothing bad could happen. Chocolate cereal could stop being for sale. That could happen. Peter Sweden says breaking the government advisor in Britain suggests implementing lockdowns to stop protests against open borders that turned into riots. The protests against open borders didn't turn into riots. The protests against open borders got targeted by Muslim fanatics who attacked them and the attacks turned into riots. So that's weird. But still, very, very odd. Very, very strange, everything going on. And it's happening in Canada too. This is what's going on in Montreal. Long live legal armed resistance. This is in Toronto. So this is what we're importing. And do you think it's going to go better than in England? They'll come and knock on your door, right? If you say, I don't like the idea of pro-Palestinian people standing on cars in the middle of the street in Toronto and lighting off smoke bombs and things, somebody would be like, we heard you said some hate speech. Legal armed resistance, eh? That's interesting. This is Montreal. Natasha Montreal says it's a death cult. Why are they in Canada? Terrorist sympathizers, night of rage in Montreal. And there was somebody else saying it was late into the night. It was late into the night and they were making lots of noise. If Canadian patriots went and idled their trucks, Zexi Lee would say, she's trying to watch Netflix and it's kind of loud, right? But this is fine.
Either us or us and nothing else. And this should be clear. I repeat.
Okay, so I don't care what they're saying. It's interesting that this is okay, but Canadian truckers not okay, right? We should be paying attention because we're not, and we're being manipulated, and we're being overrun, overthrown. Our entire country is importing the Middle East, and soon we're not going to have the population of people who remember Canada the way it was to restore it. Can we restore it? Is that even possible? Gov.exe says in January, Mark Miller announced $360 million or $140 a day to cover the costs of 7,000 asylum seekers, illegal invaders. We'll just call it illegal invaders. Mass immigration is out of control. Government now brings in over 1 million people a year at $140 a head per day. It works out to an annual bill of $50 billion to the taxpayer. How is this sustainable? Why can the government steal our tax dollars and give it to foreign invaders to spend a day in the hotel? What? How does that work? Why is that legal? Here is Andrew Pierce, just to finish off the England stuff. And I just wanted to tie it into Canada there, so I was talking about that. But people are upset about mass migration. People are upset about the policies being pushed forward by the globalist blob, Mr. Global, whatever you want to call it. And that's exactly what the powers that be want, because the more upset you are, the more you do stupid things like punch somebody or you're violent, and then they can say, look, see, you were violent and we said you'd be violent and now we need to have lockdowns, but just for you, right? Just for your group of people. And that's what they're going for. That's the way they're going to try and sell it, right? And so they provoke you. They set up a situation where sometimes they can have a police officer punch you in the face, like directly have a police officer right there and punch you in the face to provoke you. Other times they'll do stuff like this. Andrew Pierce says, look at who Labor's put in charge of overhauling the school curriculum. It's a man in a dress, okay? It's a man in a dress. And so they do that to provoke. Why do they do that? Because they want you to respond. When you respond, any response that is not in line with, that sounds great, sir, is met as a racism. And now that's justification to do more racism, or excuse me, do more crackdowns of more men in dresses, etc., etc., etc. That's the point. It is a provocation in order to get a justification, a problem, reaction, solution. And that's the method, that's the model they use to bring in this change. And it's bullshit, and it works really well. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadawide.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful